The opportunity for cameos in the final Fast and Furious film is pretty much unlimited, since the series already features major action stars like Vin Diesel, Jason Statham, and Dwayne Johnson. We also know that Fast X Part 2 stars hope for the film to return to the franchise's roots. Part of that is down to filming in Los Angeles, where the series started back in 2001, so why not bring in the former governor of California himself, Arnold Schwarzenegger? The actor turned politician has made a few feature film appearances since his governorship ended in 2011, including roles in the Expendables franchise and 2 critically panned Terminator sequels. It would make sense to feature the Governator in the Fast and Furious franchise, and not just because he has a deep connection to the state of California and history of Hollywood. He would also join fellow old school action star Kurt Russell, who may or may not be joining the finale. As to who he could play, well, at least one writer thinks he would make a killer villain. Perhaps associated in some way with Dante. He could be the stone cold logic behind Dante's madness or something along those lines. It would then be fitting for one of the greatest action franchises of all time to conclude with its heroes defeating the king of action movies himself.
And back.
Speaking of Kurt Russell, we could also see his Tango and Cash co-star Sylvester Stallone show up to bring a little more Hollywood royalty into the mix. The star of Rocky, Rambo, and the Expendables would fit right in with the Fast and Furious cast, and his presence would make for a pretty niche callback. In 2001, when the Fast and the Furious was making big bucks at the box office, Stallone was busy with his own vision of vehicular mayhem. The Rennie Harlan-directed racing flick Driven. Stallone starred as the laughably named Joe the Hummer Tanto, an Indy 500 champion who comes out of retirement to train Kip Pardue in the ways of the race car driver. That film came out and flopped in April 2001, while The Fast and the Furious trounced it just 2 months later in June. Perhaps introducing Stallone in the role of a has-been race car driver could serve as a callback to this time in movie history.
Right.
A more recent action star that the Fast and Furious franchise should consider is Scott Adkins. He is perhaps best known for his straight-to-video output with films like Avengement, The Undisputed Franchise, and Universal Soldier: Day of Reckoning, showcasing his incredible martial arts skills. He's had a few brushes with big-budget filmmaking in the past, with small roles in Doctor Strange and Expendables 2. In John Wick Chapter 4, he donned a fat suit to portray Killa Harkin, the overweight head of the German branch of the High Table. The role involved a ton of physicality and a sense of humor, both of which Adkins was ready and willing to provide. So while he certainly had his fair share of supporting roles in big action franchises, it would be a massive boon for his career to show up in a Fast and Furious sequel. We could see him joining the team as part of fellow Brit Jason Statham's crew. In fact, that would be a great way to include a few notable British action stars. Just give Deckard Shaw a whole crew to work with for one really bonkers action sequence. Get Daniel Craig and Henry Cavill in there, showcasing those glorious accents of theirs. Jude Law seems like he's having fun these days, so maybe throw him into the mix. Heck, this is already basically a Marvel movie. Could we get Patrick Stewart? Perhaps the most underutilized action star out there has to be Michael Jai White, who most notably starred in 1997's Spawn and the 2009 comedy Black Dynamite. Like Adkins, he's a star of the direct-to-video action film market. His role in Blood and Bone was critically praised, while his franchise cred includes the Never Back Down series, as well as roles in Undisputed 2, and most famously, The Dark Knight, wherein he's brutally killed by the Joker. We can imagine Michael Jai White fitting into the final flick in the Fast saga in a villainous role, but honestly, we'd be down with anything, so long as we get to see him kick some ass. In fact, you don't even need to introduce him as that big of a deal. Just let him be a random henchman who gives the crew some trouble. Then let him rip off his shirt, show off all those muscles, and get to work giving our guys hell. Kickboxer Vengeance star Alain Moussi might not be a household name, but he certainly packs a punch when he's on screen. The actor and stunt performer has the least compelling filmography on this list, but he's a formidable presence when given the opportunity, although you might not have realized it when you've seen him, as his most notable roles include doing stunt work for Hugh Jackman in X-Men, Apocalypse, and Jai Courtney in Suicide Squad. If you're a big WWE original films fan, you'll be reasonably impressed to find out he even doubled for The Miz in the Marine 3 Homefront. Otherwise, you might recall him as part of the goon squad that Bob Odenkirk defeats on the bus in Nobody. We can't imagine Alain Moussi having a huge role in a Fast and Furious movie, but he'd make for a great henchman a la Tony Jaa in Furious 7, someone who can look cool and beat up a lot of dudes in gloriously rad fashion. Moosey's King of Killers co-star Frank Grillo is another low-budget action star who deserves more big screen work. He most notably portrayed the villainous Crossbones in Captain America: The Winter Soldier and Captain America: Civil War, as well as the lead in The Purge: Anarchy and The Purge: Election Year. More recently, he voiced Rick Flag Sr. in the DC Universe animated series Creature Commandos, a role he's set to reprise in live action for James Gunn's Superman. So while he's more or less set when it comes to big action on the big screen, it would be pretty cool to see him interacting with Dom and the crew, either as a major henchman or as an unexpected ally. He has the military look down already, so perhaps a friend of Mr. Nobody, who is sent to help the crew in their fight against Jason Momoa's glorious overacting.
You're absolutely right.
Now, just for the heck of it, let's go back to the A-listers. There are plenty of great action icons that we'd like to see enter the Fast universe. Basically all of them, in fact. But one we could easily see making a cameo is Mark Wahlberg, who could show up in a way similar to Ryan Reynolds in Hobbs & Shaw. The star of Shooter, Lone Survivor, and the recent Flight Risk would most likely appear as an ally of the crew, probably in a sort of brilliant everyman capacity. Perhaps he could be a trusted mechanic friend who's brought in to supercharge a car for purposes related to worldwide espionage. Of course, there is the other option. With Flight Risk, he proved to everyone who hadn't seen Fear that he could play a crazed villain just fine. While it seems like Dante will be the big bad of Part 2, if he's tossed to the side or given an accomplice, it would be great to see Marky Mark in the role. Bonus points if he goes bald again. There have also been reports that Wahlberg was a contender to play Brian in the original The Fast and the Furious, so there's also that bit of serendipity. And finally, we'd pay good money to see Liam Neeson show up in a Fast and Furious flick, perhaps in the role of a secretive government type like Mr. Nobody. He's got plenty of gravitas, the action bone fights from Taken, and a host of other films, and he has range. Just check out the trailer for the new Naked Gun to see proof.
Who are you?
Frank Drebin, Police Squad. The new version.
Heck, do something silly. Make him Brian's dad, out to do right by his son in the world of street racing. In fact, go one step further. Make him the top drag racer in Los Angeles. It would make very little sense and come off as a bad joke, but then that is what Part 1 kind of set us up for. We don't know very much about Fast X Part 2, but we can still dream about the potential for all the action stars who might show up in what could be the final entry in the Fast and Furious franchise. Who would you like to see appear in the potentially final installment of the mainline Fast franchise? Let us know in the comments, and thank you for watching Screen Rant.